imagine the journey for being a research engineer to a product manager. Uh, with product management comes a huge aspect of aligning viewpoints, and certain colleagues may be more assertive than you. Sometimes you will may appear more assertive than someone else, and sometimes, which was my case, I met with people that just made me way uncomfortable because I was like, wow, you're making assumptions after assumption. And and I would tell you, like, at least a few meetings went by where I quietly listened, and I walked away feeling very uncomfortable, not just because they were assertive, but because they were asserting things that I didn't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to a coach at that point, right? Talked through the whole thing, and here's the framework we came up with. Anytime someone making an assertion about something that's a hypothesis, something that's not a fact, I'm going to ask the question back. Why this? Why that? Like, ground my questions in curiosity. I don't think I want to upset them, but I want to understand where they are coming from. You don't have to be very assertive sounding. You just need to make sure whatever you are comfortable with the conversation. And if there are things you don't agree with or things that don't make sense to you, feel free to pause and ask questions back and level set the understanding. And then from there, you can drive alignment.
And that right there is where Juhi changed everything. She didn't try to be louder. She didn't try to be someone she's not. She simply got curious and started to ask better questions. And it worked. And this episode is for anyone who's ever felt steamrolled, talked over, or just unsure how to make your voice heard without having to perform confidence. Hi everyone, my name is Limor Bergman Gross. I'm a former director of engineering, now an executive coach for women in tech, and you reached the podcast From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast for women who are ready to lead on their own terms. Every week, we share honest stories from women in tech leadership to help you grow your confidence, influence, and voice. And in this episode, I talked to Juhi Ranjan. She is a PhD researcher that turned into a senior product leader in AI, distributed systems, and developer platforms. And today we talk about navigating assertive, male-dominated rooms, owning your voice without mimicking others, how Juhi pivoted from academia to product, and how she stayed true to her values even when it's hard. So if you ever felt overlooked, talked over, or unsure how to lead in your own way, this episode is for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. And are you ready? Let's dive right in. Hi, Juhi, how are you?
I'm great, Limor. So great to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's great talking with you. And thank you so much for agreeing to being on my podcast. And I know you mentioned to me that you have been on a podcast before, but that's your second time. So what kind of initiated that? What brought you here?
So, firstly, I want to say I'm very excited to be here. I have watched your podcast. I think it's a great platform for women leaders to connect with each other, to hear stories from each other, learn, and just empower each other to move forward more. So, I think the first thing that got me here is just the desire to be part of your initiative and, the cause that you are leading. This is not my first podcast. This is my second podcast. And why the second reason why I agreed to come here or reached out to you rather is I discovered the first time I shared my voice, it was not anything very professional related, was related to supporting my spouse in his startup journey. And when I shared it, I just realized I was connecting with my friends at a much deeper level because I shared, I was vulnerable. I shared my insights and I got a lot of great, connection with them, heard new things from them, and learned something. So I feel like your podcast is the perfect place for me to come and, share my professional story with the perspective that hopefully my nonlinear career journey is normalizing someone else's decisions here, and just encourage others to think that they don't need to sound like someone else to be a leader. They can be themselves and just operate with authenticity and have a great impact professionally. So all of those things have led me to this one channel today.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciate you. And yes, that's my mission, to share the stories of women like you, because I think other women can very much relate and can see you as a role model, and you can inspire them to do something similar. So maybe let's talk about your career journey, because you mentioned it wasn't linear. So can you share a little bit how your career kind of led you? I know that you're in product today. How you got there?
Absolutely. Just straight out of engineering and undergrad, I was a software engineer. Why? Because they came to the campus, they showed us money, and it was exciting to become an adult and earn your own living. I became a software engineer, did well, honestly, got promoted fast, got good reviews, but very quickly I felt I was not learning, which was something my dad had cautioned me against. So, my dad's been a PhD researcher, a scientist, and I had also interned with him as an undergrad, and he was warning me that, I feel you like depth. So, from there, 2 years into software engineering, I started to feel like, where is that learning, that excitement? I moved to research. I went back, I became a research engineer. I built assistive devices, prototypes. From there, I wanted to do my PhD. I applied to University of Virginia, joined my professor, Professor Whitehouse, in doing PhD on smart home sensors and sensing. A lot of fun, and just very excited by bridging the gap between hardware and software in my research. So that was my excitement. uh, from there, again, I think when I did my PhD, very natural channels are, you either become a professor or you maybe go into industry research. And of the two channels, it just felt at that point the academic path had more creative freedom. So let me go that route. Became a professor. Again, very quickly realized that I will not gain momentum unless I have a big group of students working with me, and that's taking time. Each student is not motivated to give 100%. They have many other things going on. So I wanted to come to a place where everyone is focused on the same thing. So I moved into industry research, and that's at my current company. That's where realized I love solving complex technical problems. But I started also observing the product people and the engineers and the PMs, and I started talking to them. I loved how they were able to connect the dots between customer need and solution and make an impact. So making an impact, learning, these are the two guiding factors that have led me to, eventually I pivoted from being a research engineer in my company to being a product manager, and there slowly, gradually increased my scope of responsibilities, and now I'm the head of product at a company called RTI, and I get to work with a lot of great product managers as well as engineers, and it's been a fantastic pivot. So, but maybe if anything you want to get from this story is, my two values have guided me through all of this, and I use them to sense, am I enjoying what I'm doing or not? Am I learning, and am I having an impact? And I have not regretted any decision. It's been a great journey. I have learned so much on the way, and I'm very satisfied being where I am. Uh, and I think that, I think it's to me, if I have to give a lesson to someone, is find your maybe two or three guiding principles, right? And those are your compass, and use them to say it's okay for me to pivot. This is not the career I planned, but guess what? This other opportunity that seems to come my way is aligned better to what truly energizes me. And you know, that's kind of a little bit of this journey.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing your career journey, Julie. And I think there are a lot of lessons to learn here, right? I mean, it's about even if you started on one path, you don't have to stay there your entire career, right? I mean, you can move, and you made a lot of changes, right? You moved from software to research. You want from from companies working in the companies to university and back, and from research to product. So you can do a lot of changes in your career.
Absolutely. And opportunities often, like if you work hard, you connect well, opportunities will come your way. But it's on you to take the courage to pivot if it's aligned to your values and
Yeah,
whatever
if this is
it is.
something you're saying, like you want to grow, you want to learn, you so I heard kind of growth. Are you growing? Are you learning? And does it interest you? And what where your passion is in an interest?
Absolutely. And think, do those, and at least no regrets, right? You look back and you're happy with your choices, happy with the decision.
You know, I also agree with you that no regrets is a great attitude. I don't know if to say sorry or not sorry about my choices, but I think that when I look back, I always say I learned something. Even if I made a choice that, yeah, maybe was not the greatest, there is always something to learn, and it's part of a journey.
I cannot agree with you more because, when I moved to product management, a lot of eyebrows were raised. Like, she was in research and like product, they are unrelated. But guess what, Limor? Like, so many translatable skills. A PhD makes you very comfortable to exist in ambiguity, find a direction there. You have to learn to communicate in the written form, in the oral form. You have to learn to have humility because guess what? Your hypothesis is wrong so many times before you get it right once. And those are life lessons, and they stayed with me and they serve me well today. So, all of our experiences sum up to who we are today, and absolutely no regrets because they all make you who you are, and make you the exciting person that everyone wants to work with.
For sure, and I kind of also hear from you like building connections and networks, because eventually when you make a pivot, you need someone to believe in you, right? I mean, because as you said, a lot of eyebrows were lifted, like, oh, how come you're moving from research to product? So you need a support system. You need people to actually believe in you and give you that chance.
Absolutely, you need to create a champion, someone who's willing to vouch for you, because it's whenever there's a hiring decision, it's always safe. And I'm looking at the market now, right? Like, people are going for safe bets. Have you done this job before in this very domain for these very particular business metrics? And yes, it's a safe choice, but sometimes when you get the person who hasn't done exactly the role before, but they have shown great growth, they show hunger, like that hunger, channeling that hunger into something, you know it can give you way more returns on just going with the safe bet. So but you need to find a champion, and for that it is important to build connections, to present yourself, show who you stand for, what is your story, so that someone else is willing to believe in you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a message I'm hearing from you to employers, right? I mean, not always to go on so-called the safe kind of hire someone who have been doing something similar, whatever, but actually look for people who have curiosity, willing to learn, willing to do something they haven't done before. And I think, I think, Juhi, that attitude is more important than experience in a way, right? I'm not saying that experience is not important, but when you kind of compare the both, when you have someone with maybe not the same experience, they are, they're hungry, they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to do things. That's more important than having all the check boxes met in the job description.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not to say that you hold experience against them or something, right? But interviews and hiring processes are designed to have different rounds, different objectives. Now imagine you have two candidates that have risen through both the processes, one with experience and the other with hunger. But they have both crossed all the hurdles you have given them in the whole hiring process. Now, who do you go with? I think sometimes if you have the luxury of making a bet on the underdog, because that underdog who has surpassed the expectations by competing head on with this experienced person all the rounds and come to this final decision making time is showing a promise of much higher retention, because you know what, you are giving them a gift and they're going to stay with you longer because they are learning something in the process. They have the desire to prove themselves to you, to their own selves. That helps you tide through all the ups and downs of the journey that is there in product, especially. It's not a very predictable happy sunny day role. You want people who are resilient and who are willing to tide over things and still bring their calm in.
For
And
sure.
those ingredients are magic ingredients.
Definitely. And I want to make sure that we touch on another thing that you mentioned to me in our pre-call was about kind of assertive colleagues. And you mentioned that, and I very much relate to that personally. So you mentioned that you've been in the past very uncomfortable with meeting with assertive colleagues. So can you share a little bit about that and how did you kind of learn to stand up for yourself, but without changing who you really are?
Absolutely, Limor. Like, imagine the journey for being a research engineer to a product manager, a research engineer, structured thinking, analytical person. That translates well to product management. But with product management comes a huge aspect of aligning viewpoints, and certain colleagues may be more assertive than you, because assertiveness is never a perfect match. You can never truly be matching on the assertiveness scale. Sometimes you will may appear more assertive than someone else, and sometimes, which was my case, I met with people that just made me way uncomfortable, because I was like, wow, you're making assumptions after assumptions and you are like, this is what we do. And and I would tell you, like, at least a few meetings went by where I quietly listened and I walked away feeling very uncomfortable, not just because they were assertive, but because they were asserting things that I didn't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to a coach at that point, right? This was not something I discovered on my own. Talked to a coach, talked through the whole thing, and here's the framework we came up with. Anytime I find myself someone making an assertion about something that's a hypothesis, something that's not a fact, I'm going to ask the question back. Why this? Why that? Like, ground my questions in curiosity. I don't think I want to upset them, but I want to understand where they are coming from, either from a point that I meet them where they are at. These are all the data points that have led them to this conclusion, or maybe they will admit, oh, that was just my opinion. And that whole thing, it just balances the equation, because you don't have to be very assertive sounding. You just need to make sure whatever you are comfortable with the conversation, and if there are things you don't agree with or things that don't make sense to you, feel free to pause and ask questions back. and level set the understanding. And then from there, you can drive alignment. Because if you find them making assertions that are not true, and you can't fact find, you can say, hey, I see why you may think that. But you know what? I don't think I have seen such data points. In fact, that makes me believe it's okay for us to consider X, Y, whatever. You take the conversation from
Yeah.
navigating it is much easier once you agree on the assumptions and they accept what is made up by them in their mind, which is perfectly fine to know, or what is a true fact that you need to learn about.
I love that. And I think, Julie, I mean, asking questions is a great tool. I mean, I think that one of the challenges is that people don't, first of all, they don't really listen to other people, right? You mentioned curiosity, being curious, to really understand the train of thought of someone, right? I mean, why they're thinking that way, challenging them by asking questions. And many people just tend to argue, right? To say, hey, you're wrong, I disagree. And usually that doesn't lead to a very good discussion.
No, it does not. And listening to align means, I think, if I had to give anyone advice who's struggling to do this, right? This is how I do it. I, as I'm listening, am trying to find common ground. I am deliberately trying to find common ground because guess what? I totally know where we disagree.
Yeah.
so so I have to make a conscious effort to find common ground and start from common ground. So this person knows you are not there just to debate. As you said, Limor, like debating for the sake of debating is very common, and people are used to it and they are jaded by it. So they like it if you start from what you see eye to eye on, and where specifically do you disagree, and how perhaps you may go forward from there, and depending on the situation. I think that's where, like, being very comfortable having a different point of view, stating it, and owning the room in driving that alignment, that can set you apart.
Definitely. And I think as women, this is one of our strengths, right? Because we come with less ego and less desire to be the right, being right, and we come with more empathy and curiosity to really understand the other people. And as you mentioned, like, okay, what do we agree on, or what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve here? Now let's see how do we get there. And yeah, there's probably more than one way, and kind of figure out how we work together.
Absolutely.
How do you feel? I want to kind of add another perspective to this. Kind of how do you feel like being the only woman? I mean, when you have been the only woman in the room, because that adds a different challenge, right? I mean, not just the sake of assertiveness and arguing, but also everyone is man and you're the only woman. How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, it's you know I wish I had a good answer there, but I feel like, at least in the professions I have chosen, from being a research engineer in the field of sensor networks, distributed systems, to even in my company, I was the only woman in team meetings, sometimes in the entire conference room. And when you have that degree of lack of diversity, at least of having more women in the room, it's very disorienting in one way. Like, imagine, Lamore, if you don't look in the mirror and you're looking at a room full of only men, you will forget that you're a woman also sometimes, because, like, there is nothing reminding that the whole concept of diversity, I am so it's so weird. But the fact that I stand out as a woman is not always obvious to me, because looking around, everyone's a man, and it's so used to that dynamic, so
Yeah.
used to that ratio, that, I mean, how did I even realize? I didn't realize for almost years that I was the only woman in our internal, larger team. and I was looking to make an hire, and someone from our hiring team made a comment, it would be nice to get another woman. And that's when I was like, it really is like, because you're not looking at yourself, you're looking at the room. I didn't realize I was, and it's not good, because now we have hired, we have women in the room, and I see the discussions have become richer, more dynamic. There is, I can relate to my thinking sometimes when someone else speaks there. So I feel better represented in the thought process, in how I am approaching things. So I mean, honestly, we how have I been doing? I mean, I feel I have lived in this world for so long that I have been comfortable being myself, but I did not realize how much better I feel with more faces like mine, more women in the room, and the thought process is being reflected. So definitely, I don't know if I have a great insight here on how to navigate, other than hold your ground, hold your true compass in the room. You are representing a very, unique perspective that no one brings, doesn't matter your gender. So straight, strong, straight, true. But yeah, I mean, when there is diversity, there is more comfort, more psychological safety that is going to help. So please do attempt to have more diversity in your teams if you have the ability to shape that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So, first of all, I would say, I mean, your perspective is very, very valuable, right? I mean, everyone is experiencing differently. And also, I got used to be the only woman, but I never felt like I'm like the other people there. I felt different. And I think my kind of way of approaching it was like, I'm different, and it's actually a benefit. It's actually a benefit because, as you said, like your voice matters. It's important to bring a different perspective, and the more we bring different perspectives, actually, we're going to gain more things. We're going to be more successful, not just men, women, right? People from different opinions. And I think that once I realized that actually being different is a strength, that's where I felt more comfortable with just showing up the way I am. And once the men they realize that yeah, I bring something else, something that they don't have, they start appreciating me more.
Absolutely. And it's so important to own this difference and not feel threatened by it,
Yeah,
right? Like, you feel like, oh, I am sounding so different. Like, no one is talking about this X thing that I'm thinking about. They're all talking about Y. And sometimes, Limor, like, while you owned it, and that was really great because it established your value, I also know of women, my peers, my friends, who feel uncomfortable because of that. Like, I will sound so stupid for saying Y because everyone's talking about X or whatever, right? Like, that is the place where you need to be very strong there, right? Like, I am coming to the thoughts, this different thought, because of my unique perspective. This is what I saw, this is what I experienced. It's not lining up exactly with what these guys are saying. And when you bring that diversity of thought to the table, yeah, maybe you are wrong, and then you will walk away better aligned to that discussion. That's great. Or what's likely going to happen is they will be surprised, and they will account for it somewhere, in either in their mental map or in the discussion, and you will have an impact on that discussion, and you will enjoy that experience, and you will feel comfortable and want to do it more. And
definitely.
sometimes there, Limor, I think another champion, like, I think I really value the role of champions, right? Like, somewhere a champion saying, hey, Limor, or hey, Juhi, like, you've been quiet in this meeting. What's on your mind? Anything? Do you agree? Like, just draw out the
Yeah.
quiet people.
Yeah, you
Like,
kind of, went to what I wanted also, I was thinking about also, Julie. So I think that for those women who feel like very uncomfortable because like they are maybe thinking differently, or maybe, I can share. I'm a very quiet person, and it's very hard for me to stand out in meetings where everyone is very kind of loud, assertive, and so forth. So I think having someone, as you said, a champion, even, sometimes I try to ask, before the meeting, hey, can you help me out? It's really difficult for me. So ask, just ask me a question. And this is so important to have someone or sometimes more than one person who really knows you and knows your value and can help you.
100%.
Wonderful. And I want to go to something you mentioned to me earlier. You said something I think is very powerful. You said, I don't do things I don't believe in. So can you share a little bit how how it helped you?
And perhaps how it didn't, because um, I am a person who operates with a strong internal compass, and that is really important because as a product manager, if I had ambiguous situations, now as a product leader, it has just exponentially increased. And I don't think you will ever have enough information. So staying true to what you believe in just naturally lets you apply all your thinking and your direction. And so what's the drawback if you don't believe in something and you have to still do it? It's really a challenge to drive those initiatives. But I want to focus on the positive first because I feel I try my best when I don't understand something or I don't believe something, that wherever, supposing I've been told go do X and I don't believe in it, I don't think it's the right thing. I will try my best to first align on why do you believe it? What is fueling your belief in it, your mission in it? Let me at least adopt that. Let me operate with that mindset. And based on that, I try to make decisions. And if it doesn't come to those right indicators that this is going well, I will again realign. But this whole process makes me feel very happy. It makes me autonomous. I am ask I'm asking like honest questions. I just it just helps me apply myself fully. I don't know how to explain it more other than that. I feel, it's this desire to always feel like I am in control and I'm applying myself, I'm learning, has led me to either do things I believe in or work hard to align on things I don't believe in, so at least I can get to driving the mission of the person who is believing. Because we
Yeah,
are living in a in a world where it's unreal to expect that you will always believe in everything you are driving because you don't see everything the same way either.
definitely. And I think alignment is very important. And I've seen that, right? I mean, I've been in companies where there is not enough transparency in decisions and directions. And that really demoralizes people. And as you said, like, I may not believe in something, but at least if I understand the motivations, if I understand like why decisions are made that way, what's the thought process behind it, you may, maybe disagree and commit. Maybe you say, okay, I'm still not sure, but I understand why we're doing it. So it will be more comfortable than just do something because someone told you and you don't understand everything behind it.
I agree. So that's why I think one thing you just said is disagreeing and committing. That's one tool. Or if you think it's something that's a huge initiative, then the second way of approaching it is let's design some experiments. Let's do some small things that give us some data and then go back if the data is not showing the results. Either should we do this or did I understand the wrong thing? And it's just powerful to try and keep aligning, especially for big bets. I think if your senior management is trusting you to raise the red flag as you see it as well, no
Yeah,
one wants you to just blindly drive an initiative into non success. So do your part in staying aligned.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes there's challenges with leadership that are. I've seen leaders who uh, want to be the kind of the ones setting the tone. So sometimes it's difficult. But I think the strategy we talked about earlier with challenging with questions, can help in those cases. And as you said, experiment. I think, to be honest, in nowadays we experiment. We cannot just do those big initiatives without really testing things because everything is changing so rapidly. What is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow.
100%.
And Julie, I can't believe it's already been 30 minutes. The time flies. And I want to make sure that kind of give you the stage to share whatever else you want to share, any kind of piece of advice to women or anything else you want to share that I haven't touched on.
I think you have touched on a lot of great things. I feel like, just work towards meaning for yourself. Know you are empowered. A lot of times we feel powerless. And sometimes because we make our own assumptions about the situations. If you are feeling powerless, go figure your way out, have the options, and then operate with a sense of power. And I think that's going to completely change the dynamic you feel so that you want to show up fully with energy in your roles. And that shows. And that's just like a flywheel of career growth, right? Like you show, you execute, you deliver. And if you feel like this is something is not adding value, know what it means to walk away, have options. We talked earlier about build champions, have connections. I think we have a lot more leverage over our experiences in our career through either reframing situations, showing up more fully, or even walking away when you need to. But the power is with you, and you can truly shape it to be something that makes you excited every day.
Wow, this is such a powerful way to end this episode. I want to thank you so much, Juhi, for being here today and sharing everything with our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Limor, for offering this opportunity and this platform. I do feel I learned something in talking to you, and a lot of my deeper thoughts came out. So I would recommend this platform for other women to come and talk to you and, explore their perspectives.
For sure. Send them my way.
Thanks, Limor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening for the episode with Juhi. And before you go, I want to ask you one thing. If this episode made you think, if it gave you even one insight, tell me. Send me a quick message on LinkedIn or contact me on Substack and let me know what landed. I read every single note that you sent. And if you haven't already, hit follow so you never miss another episode. And don't miss what's coming up next week. Because next week I'm sitting down with Brittany Kaplan. And she's the woman who reinvented her life 7 times across the US and said yes to opportunities. Most of us would overthink for weeks. She just said yes and built a career in media, entertainment, and sports by simply showing up with courage, curiosity, and hustle. And we talked about bold career moves. We talked about mentorship and the power of reaching out even when you are terrified. And we talked about what it actually means to be a big fish in a small pond. It's raw, inspiring, and honestly, it will make you question whether you're saying no to the things that you should change in your life. So, subscribe, share this episode with a friend who needs it, and stay tuned. Next week, conversation with Brittany. You don't want to miss it. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.